We're actually going to move directly to Dr. Lama Al Sulaiman, and then we'll have Dr. Al-Khafaji come up and maybe do a Q&A, time permitting. We're trying to keep on the schedule as much as possible. So we're going to hear, as I say, from Dr. Lama Al Sulaiman, who is a wonderful spokeswoman about doing business in Saudi Arabia, and we're delighted she came all this way to give us some idea about entering the Saudi market and Saudi's Vision 2030. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Lama Al Sulaiman.
Thank you. Thank you, Simmons, for inviting me, actually. I've been thinking a lot after I came here what I should be talking about, and there's so much to talk about, and I thought I wanted to start. I mean, everybody here is into the health sector and everything you're doing. I want to just remember with everyone that we have many concerns today, coming from Saudi and with all the region and the Middle East and everything that is happening. I want to remember 3 points that I think are very important to us. I want to tell you that we all in the Middle East today are living in increasing local and global uncertainties. And the first presentation that we had spoke about over-information. We have too much information. There's a lot of miscommunication, misinterpretation. And we're witnessing all of this today. Is what we read the truth and reality? Is what we hear about each other the truth and reality? I have no idea. We live in a world where social media is really blowing up. Saudi Arabia is one of the top users of social media, internet, digital media. So, of course, what do we do with this information overload in countries that are not ready for it? I also have no idea. So I'm hoping you will find solutions. The other thing is we live in a very disheartening global climate. Everywhere I go, there is a growing worldwide loss of confidence of governments and what they should do and the capacity for governments to deliver promises. And the other thing is that we're also not too sure whether the private sector is actually an agent of change or whether it's only about profitability. Of course, the third thing that I want to remind everyone about is we live in an increasing cultural gap and identity politics that seems to be alienating us from each other even more and more. Now let me tell you about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has achieved a lot in a very short amount of time. Saudi Arabia is 75 years old. At that time, it was always the state that was generating everything from education, from health, from building infrastructure. Everything was done from the state. Today, we reach a time where there are low oil prices, we have digital revolution, demographic changes, and then, of course, the geopolitical unrest in the region, which got Saudi Arabia to decide we can no more just depend on oil and that we have to diversify the economy. Much easier said than done. However, we have done what everybody does, but we have not done that before, which we've created a vision. Vision, we've called it 2030. So now at least everybody's looking at the same plan. Vision 2030 is supposed to create out of Saudi Arabia a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and an ambitious government. It sounds very easy to everybody. I mean, vibrant society, that should be something that everybody should be looking for, but no, absolutely not. What we used to have in the past was that every government institution was working on its own, creating new projects, small little move to development, and nothing really happening on the ground. Now that there is one vision, we're hoping that everybody is looking towards moving in the same direction. One vision means that the government is going to work with the private sector and some NGOs to be able to move towards that vision. The most important is we're going to improve the e-government and also improve the digital economy. Infrastructure for the future means that these two must be up to the standards required. We're also building sector-specific cities, which means there's a medical city, there's a knowledge city, there's an economical city, industrial city, even what you would call the manufacturing hubs, where different manufacturers in these industrial cities will be clustered in one area. And then there's also something happening at the same time, which is not as exciting, which is also there's a new bringing in of fiscal situation. We never paid any kind of taxes, and there's still, until today, no individual taxes in Saudi Arabia, but taxes on imports are something new to us today. And things like subsidies are going to be restructured, so what was subsidized and there was no need for it is today cut down, and basically we are undergoing a complete transformation. Some of it is being able to be survived by citizens and private sector in Saudi, and some of it are facing much more challenges to actually how do you execute such immense amount of transformation in policies, budgetaries, and also how do you modernize everything that was not modernized. Private sector, let me tell you that with all these changes, in 2014 there were about 1,600,000 enterprises in Saudi Arabia. Today there are only 1 million enterprises in Saudi Arabia. Is that good or bad? You can look at it whichever way. Some of these enterprises were built not effectively and did not use, were not efficient in how they moved, and I guess that means that today the ecosystem requires more robust, more efficient businesses to be able to move forward and to grow. So most of these businesses, 90% of these businesses are small and medium businesses, which means if I had to compare them to how many employees they have, SMEs, the medium size will have up to 250 employees. So, and a small business could have up to just 5 employees. So that's how tiny we're talking about. So most of these 600,000 are those that have less than 10 employees. Then, if I wanted to tell you more about SMEs, as I said, they contributed to only 22% of the GDP. We were hoping that we can increase that with all the transformation that is happening. And they do not really employ a lot of locals. So in the Saudi market, 13 million people work in the labor market. Out of the 13 million, 11 of them are non-local employees. So that means that all these businesses are not creating jobs for locals, but mostly creating jobs for expats. This is a big problem we are facing today in Saudi, because 70% of our population are young people, and they do require jobs. If that's how little you think Saudis find jobs in Saudi, well, I don't want to tell you that only 14% of those jobs are women. So in unemployment, 32% of the unemployment are women. So people that are seeking jobs today are the women. What do we really need? We need to get rid. We need to think. So we are going to, we want business sector that are going to be more productive and productivity-driven modernization. So we want them to be more productive to modernize themselves, even though we still have to have the more classical capital-intensive businesses like construction, because there's still a lot of infrastructure that's going to be built. What are the sectors? Mining and metal is a huge sector that's going to be coming into Saudi, because Saudi has a huge amount of resources under its ground that have never been discovered or even tried. So mining is a huge growing business and completely virgin today. Not many have gone there. Petrochemicals, we always had petrochemicals. We have been a leading country in petrochemical businesses. However, there are much more opportunities over there, and especially in manufacturing of the basics in the petrochemical sector. Manufacturing, I told you the clusters. We are looking at helping a lot of these manufacturer clusters to come in, especially in the automotive sector. Transportation and logistics, well, Saudi Arabia has an amazing geographical location. It's in the middle of Europe, Africa, and Asia. So it's going to support all kinds of logistics. We have ports, a lot more. Over 10 new ports are going to be built. New airports are being opened. So you have the sea, you have by air. We will work hard at creating a huge logistic hub in Saudi Arabia. And then tourism. Tourism is something we've never had, so there were no tourist visa, as you know. This is something that's been looked at now at the Shura Council as well as the government at creating tourist visa. What we've had until today is the religious tourism, which is people coming in to Mecca and Medina for religious reasons. And we're talking about people that come in yearly in the millions, but we have the Red Sea. There's a lot of tourist activities that could grow in Saudi Arabia. Hotel is I come from a hospitality business background. It is an extremely fast-growing business. Healthcare, I'm not going to tell you how much healthcare. There are so many beds missing in Saudi. We have a good healthcare system, but it's tiny for the growing population. There's a lot of healthcare support system. The country is supporting also pharmaceutical and all kinds of pharmaceutical industries. I heard a lot of presentation this morning, and it's unbelievable how far and the gap between what I heard today and what is actually needed in many countries just to move to being where you were 10 years ago. So I think the opportunities are huge in Saudi, because why would I think, and the energy sector, we're working to be able to grow the energy sector to something like 9.5 gigawatt, which is through solar, nuclear, and other kind of energy. My time is up, that's it. But I just want to, there's so much to say, and I don't want to go everywhere, but I just want to talk about one thing that I think everybody might be interested, which is the women issues. As you know, you can no more ask me whether I can drive or not, because I will be driving on the 24th of June. So, so the women issues, a lot has happened since 2003. And there's no reason for me to tell you the amount of things that happened, because it's not, for you, you're going to look like that's normal. No, if I just tell you that we have women on boards of banks, of hospitals, of government organization and general authorities, you're going to think it's normal, but it's not normal. If I'm going to tell you that we're going to we have now women lawyers, that was not normal 10 years ago. Women engineers that can finding jobs, that was also not normal. We actually just got a national sexual harassment law that was not normal. So how did all of this happen? It's through social dialogue. In the past 20 years, we've had constant social dialogue. We've had a state that was ready to change the policies. So where we are today is we are at a point where majority of the policies have been changed. How easy is it going to be to have all these policies trickle down to actually reality? Well, that's going to depend on how fast people are going to accept them and how fast people are going to implement them. There are still things happening, so basically we live in a world that is normal, usually people are used to segregation where men and women are not mixing together, and that seems to be an issue for a lot of people. So the question is, do we segregate or do we mix? Do we mix women that are not comfortable being mixed? Do we impose on them to mix? Or do we segregate women that want to be mixed with men if it's part of the job or if it's part of a board? The question should be answered by, this is a choice, so one should provide everything to everybody, because any policy should be able to cover every person and every person in society, irrelevant of where they come from, who they are, what are their beliefs. And getting this to work in Saudi is certainly a challenge today. However, I think 70% young generation, I think the challenges are going to be much less in the future. But I think, I also believe we're in a better place. We're very optimistic. We know we're going to face lots of challenges, but I think we're ready for them. Our young people are very much ready for them. And thank you very much for listening.